This is the Animation Voiceover Challenge. Starting now?
Eagle, where are you? That is it. A sorceress always has to do everything herself. Never trust a drone. Hey, I'm Billy, and these are all my friends. We're super sweet, totally awesome, extra cool kick-butt firefighters. Or at least, we will be someday.
Perhaps I should thank you. I did have a bit of an itch in my throat. Now, where were we? Oh, that's right. Me eating you.
Shush! You're so tough. Can you do this? Or what about this? It's not how many times you fall down, but how many times...
Yay! There you are. Hi, Anthony.
Hi.
How are you tonight?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for joining me here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, me too.
One of the big things, like, I remember you, the first moment I ever saw you was we were in an acting class. I was new to it, something that you, I think, had been doing for a while. And someone asked you a question, and then out of nowhere, I just hear like 3 or 4 different voices, like coming from the same area. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. That was like the very first impression I ever had of you. And I was just like, that guy's awesome. So thank you for being here. Always been impressed by everything that you do, and everything from the voiceover and the stage work. That really, I haven't done stage in a very long time, and I see you out there crushing it, killing it, and loving every minute of it. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a whole different beast in acting. It's funny because I do stage, film, and voiceover, and they're all like 3 totally different disciplines when it comes to acting. A lot of people think, oh, it's all acting, it's all the same, but it's really not.
There's so many different, I mean, even from commercial to, you know, shorts to like there's so many different aspects out there. It really is a different animal in each one. So yeah,
sure.
And that's the other thing, the characters that you do just on your profile, different pictures. I'm like, is that him? Like, wow. There's so many different things that you do. It's quite impressive. So thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations. You had a big weekend, right? I don't know if you want to share that or...
Yeah, no, I got engaged this weekend, and that was really, it's funny because it was something I never thought I would do again. I've been married before, and you know, you get to thinking that maybe you're damaged goods or, you know, whatever, but I really knew what I wanted this time around. I was very, very focused on what I wanted. I wrote everything down, very specific, and then she just showed up. I didn't go looking for her. She just showed up, and man, it was magical. It's been magical ever since.
That's beautiful. And it seemed that like just different posts that you guys are together and just beaming, absolutely beaming. So congratulations. And
thank you.
So wonderful. Awesome. Jumping right in and looking at like from your acting, it said that you went to Utah State. Now, did you know like from a young age, or did you know what you wanted to do early on, or how did that come about?
Well, it's interesting. Hindsight, you were able to look back at moments that brought about what might have spurred the acting bug in you. And when I was a kid, I would go to movies a lot. My uncles took me to movies all the time, and I was just fascinated with them ever since I started. I saw Star Wars, the original Star Wars, in the movie theaters. I was like 5 years old and just floored at how big the ship was. The first ship that goes by, you know, and then the second ship that comes by is even bigger. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even would have thought. But what really solidified it for me was the movie The Champ. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's John Voight and Rick Schroeder when he was a little kid.
Okay, yeah, I think I've seen parts of it, yeah.
Yeah, and there's this moment where Rick Schroeder's character just like breaks down crying. He's just crying because his dad's going to go off to fight, and he's probably not going to live, and just the tears. And I was moved by it as a little kid. I don't think I'd ever cried watching a show before, and I was just totally moved to tears in that moment. And then that's when it hit me. It was like, wait a minute, that little boy is an actor. That's what I want to do. I want to do that. Yeah. And then my parents didn't know how to do anything to get me into acting, and didn't really encourage any of it either. So I was kind of left to my own devices. And then when I was in kindergarten, I was in a production of the Nutcracker that they did at the elementary. And I didn't even get to perform because we moved before I could even get a chance to perform. But I loved the rehearsal process, was a lot of fun for me. But I didn't really get into actually doing any kind of acting until I was a sophomore in high school. And sophomores don't normally get casts for big roles in high school. It's usually those roles go to the seniors. But the first play of the year was You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I think they wanted younger faces. The director wanted younger faces for all these young kids that are supposed to be in the show. And she actually cast 3 sophomores in that show. And I was one of the 3. And I got to play Linus. And the moment that I was on stage the first time was just magic. We did it in this choral room. It was our intimate theater, was the choral room. And they had all these lights all over the place, and you walk out and it's dark. And I had the very first line of the whole show. And I'm sitting on a seesaw with the Schroeder character, and I can see everybody. And then the lights come up and the audience disappeared. They were just gone. And I was like, and we're on. And I flowed through that performance. It was so amazing. I was hooked. I was so hooked from that point forward. I was like, I gotta keep doing this. I have to.
That's awesome. That's such a wonderful feeling, that just being on stage and, like you're saying, the audience disappearing, yet you still feel them. It's just a wonderful connection.
Yeah.
Going back, you really piqued my interest when you said, you were interested in it because of the emotions that you got, but your parents really didn't know, or really didn't support you during that time frame of knowing, hey, there's something here. Did you think about it, or was it just kind of stored in the back of your mind, and then when you got into high school, that's kind of where you went forward with it?
Yeah, I'd thought about it a lot. I wanted to do it, but even in junior high, we didn't really have a drama program in junior high. There was a speech class, which we had to get up and give speeches, which was kind of a performance. And I realized that I was really good at that. I liked doing that a lot. And then we moved again when I was in junior high to a new junior high. And they had a class that was it was called drama/speech. And I was like, oh, cool, finally a drama class. And I took that class, and it was only half a year. And when I got in it, I found out it was basically another speech class. And I'm like, I just did this. This is not what I signed up for. I wanted drama. And the teacher was really cool. He was really nice about it. He's like, well, I'll let you do monologues then. If you've already done speech, I'll let you do monologues. And I was like, cool, okay. So, and then I went to high school. I picked the high school I went to just because they recruited me basically from the drama class. They saw what I was able to do, and they're like, we'd love to have you at our school. And so then it just kind of took off. But even then, my stepdad didn't like what I was doing. He was forced to come to the plays that I was in by my mom, and he just didn't want to go. He never wanted to be there, and he just never supported me in any of that, never wanted me to do it. And I remember thinking one time, he loved Westerns and war movies. And I'm like, those guys, John Wayne is an actor. Why can't you think that that's something that I can do? And I think he told me one time, he's like, I just can't imagine you doing a job without getting dirt under your fingernails.
Oh, wow.
And
powerful.
Yeah. And so it really kind of shook me for a long time. Even though I got a scholarship up at Utah State in theater, that was another thing. I was like, see, I get to go to school for acting, why can't you get on board with that? But, he just wasn't interested in that. And then a few years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago, I got cast in a short film that they did for BYU, capstone film, where it was a Western. There was one actor, one horse, and one dog. That was it in the entire script, called On a High Arid Plain. You can look for that on YouTube. And there was a point where they were actually putting dirt, makeup dirt, under my fingernails on purpose, because they were going to do this close-up shot of me taking a rabbit out of a trap, right, a dead rabbit. and they were doing this close up of my hands, and I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So they're dirtying up my
Wow.
fingernails, and I'm like, you got to take a picture of my hands. And so they're like, what's the deal? And I had them take a picture of my hands, and I sent it to my stepdad, and I said, doing some acting, dirt under the fingernails. How do you like me now, Pops?
Wow, that's such a strong correlation because I mean you held that whole time. So that whole
Oh,
time where you're going after what it is you know you want, but you're fighting that programming that's from someone else and proving it to them and to yourself. So that's
yeah,
I'm so happy that you move forward because that I think that holds us back a lot more than we realize
yeah,
in life where someone that has either authority or that we look up to or just hits us the right way says something and then we identify with it and we hold on to it. I can relate a lot, and that's I think a lot of what held me back. And at one point in my career I decided, oh, I need to go get a real job, and so that's kind of the path that I ended up going down. And wow, that's strong. I'm glad you had that full circle moment. That's super powerful.
yeah. And I got a real job too. I used to be a licensed stockbroker, trading stocks and, helping people with their finance and investments and portfolios. And here
And
I nearly have a couple of $1,000s to rub together yet. I'm telling people how to move their hundreds of thousands of dollars around. And I was like, just because I could pass a test, like that's
yeah.
what gives me the authority to be able to do this. And I was miserable doing that. I was not happy. I had given it up for many years. I had actually put it on the back burner for a long, long time because I did go out to LA. I did go out to Hollywood for a while, and I learned a lot from that experience. I learned that I didn't push myself as hard as I could have. That was the biggest thing. I couldn't get an agent out there to save my life, and my agent even had recommended me to a couple of agencies, and they weren't taking any new clients. They were saying
Mhm.
that's all I kept hearing. We're not taking on any new clients. And I was like, okay, well, so I eventually got into an extras agency out there where they just fill the background of the films up. And I went on this set for 3 days, and I didn't know what the movie was about until my third day on the set, which was the movie Boogie Nights. And I'm in the opening shot of that film, and I got to meet Julianne Moore and Burt Reynolds, who was one of my heroes, and Mark Wahlberg
Oh wow.
and Luis Guzman and Don Cheadle, and I sat right across at lunchtime from Philip Seymour Hoffman and Heather Graham, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is insane, this is
That's
crazy, this is
awesome.
what I want to be doing. But I was just a background person, so it wasn't like I had any lines or was really moving forward with it.
Mhm.
But I learned a lot about what not to do, and I also learned that I could have pushed myself harder when I left there. I came back to Utah to try to figure it out again, and I had more connections and more opportunities here than I did out there because
Mhm.
it's a jungle out there, I tell you.
What no no and that yeah that and that's I think that's I was young too, and I don't want to say I didn't have the support because my parents were like, okay, when we can afford stuff, we'll send you to this. But they didn't have a knowledge of it or anything like that. And half the time I was like, hey, drop me off here, like just random things in the middle of LA and stuff like that. And I remember it just being like really, really hard. But I mean, I was, 13, 14, and just all I would see is a rejection, rejection, rejection. And so yeah, it's a hard thing to be able to move past that, especially at early ages and stuff like that. What do you think? You keep saying that you could have worked harder. Are there any specifics that you can give as far as what you think you could have done as far as working harder? Like, do you think just auditioning more, or what specifically do you think you could have done differently?
Well, now looking at it, if I was younger and going back out there again, the first thing I would do is find an acting class, which is something that I didn't do. I would have found any acting class to join, and um, because you can make a reputation for yourself in acting classes. You can present yourself in front of people, and a lot of times those great acting classes will have a showcase where they'll bring in a casting director or somebody in the business to see you do your stuff. That's where they go and look for new talent. And I didn't take a single acting class the whole time I was there. I went to a few like cattle call castings where you're just standing in line forever with a ton of other people, and you go in and you wait in line for like hours, and then you're only in front of them for like 2 minutes at most, and then that's it, it's over, and you're like, I just spent the whole day for 2 minutes to try to impress this person. And I'm sure they had so many faces to see that, but I could have pushed myself to keep doing those more, and I could have networked more, which is something that I wish I would have done. I could have got better quality headshots, which is something that I really should have done. And I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know. I was all on my own trying to figure it out for myself, instead of finding a mentor and getting under their wing and having them show me the ropes and the guides. And, nowadays there's all kinds of things that you can do. There's all kinds of programs you can buy. There's like the Hollywood Winner Circle, which I recommend. It's worth the price that you pay for that, because it breaks down everything that you need to do, how to put your package together, right? How to make sure that you have a way to present yourself in the best light for your people you want them to hire you. That's where I started building my website and getting my demo reel, which you can't be an actor nowadays without a demo reel, and headshots. Like, you can't just get your friend to go out and take pictures of you. You have to have like a really good photographer who knows how to blur out the background and just focus on your face, like to make you the center of what this picture is all about, not about anything else. Like,
and one
to
you
know
can
that.
connect with, you know what I mean? Like I've done different ones where if you don't connect with them, it's just, I mean, that's really on us, but still it's finding that special person. It really
That
is.
photographer that brings it out of you. Yeah. It makes it big. The photographer makes all the difference. And sometimes you have to pay a little more for that. And when you have that experience with a photographer that brings that out of you, you're like, okay, now I know why I hired this person. And it was totally worth it.
That's awesome. So when you came back to Utah, and because, from what I see you here, you're just crushing it. You're doing all these different jobs and loving it. What did you have that change once you came back, or was it a slow progression?
Yeah. Well, when I came back, I was in an improv group here in Utah called Quick Wits. It still exists, part of the Off-Broadway theater. And I was in the original opening troupe. Like, when they opened the theater, I was in the very first troupe of that. And then I left and went away. And then when I came back, it was really hard to jump back in again, because it's a muscle, and if you don't exercise that improv muscle, it's hard to, like, imagine trying to get back on stage and just, kill it again. It takes a while. And
yes, and yes, and that's all I remember.
Right. And so I started doing that to get back into it. But then I got sidetracked and I got married. And then that's when I got a real job and became a stockbroker. And I gave it all up. I had given it all up. My wife, my first wife, never even seen me on stage, had never seen me do any kind of performing of any kind. And she never did. She never has. And after I divorced her, I went to a play. I was still working as a stockbroker, and I went to this play at this theater that I'm not going to name. And I was watching the performance, and I was just livid. I was so mad. I'm sitting in this theater, and I'm pulling my hair out, and I'm like, oh, this is frustrating, because these actors suck. And like, I could act circles around these guys, and they're doing it all for themselves and not the audience. And they're going off the rails, and they're not even following the script anymore. And, there's just all this stuff, and it just pissed me off so bad. And I left the theater, and I got to my car, and I'm in the car, and I'm still mad. And I'm like, why am I so angry? Why am I so mad about this? And then it hit me. I need to be on stage again.
Yeah.
And so that next day, I was at work, and on my first break, I typed in auditions, Salt Lake City, and I found an audition at the Hale Center Theater for the Three Musketeers that very weekend. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. And I went and I did that show, and I got cast as Porthos. I wanted to be one of the Three Musketeers, and I was. And then I got hooked, and I did a play there about every year for a while. I was messing around with that. I'd gotten remarried, and she was a little more supportive. But I think what really made the difference was her grandfather was a professional actor. He was a member of the Academy, even like would vote on the Academy Award movies, and they would send him the DVDs, and he'd watch them and write his ballots out and send them in. And he was getting close to being in his 80s, but he hadn't started being a professional actor until he was 40. And I was I was 41 at this time, and he had performed many shows of Christmas Carol. He did a one-man show for a long time, and I was doing a Christmas Carol at the Hill Center Theater as Jacob Marley. And he came and saw it, and he was like, "That's the best Marley I've ever seen." And and he's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "This." I want to do what you're doing. And he said, "Come over to my house and we'll have a discussion." And so I went over to his house, and he pulled out this stack. It was like all these papers, like in this big old thick stack. And it was like every single job he'd ever done, every single acting job he'd ever done since he became a professional actor. And I was just floored. I'm like, wow. And, most of them were SAG. A lot of it was SAG work. And he said, "I think you got what it takes. And you should do this. If this is what you want to do, you're incredibly talented. You should go for it." And that's the first time that I had anybody of any real clout, kind of in my corner and pushing me like, "Yeah, you're ready for this." And
what did that do for you? Like, cause
it was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, that happened also kind of right at the same time that the company I was working for was hiring. They were looking for a voice of the company, and they were trying to hire from within. And I was like, I got this. That's my gig. That's going to be me. And I auditioned for it, and I got the part. And I knew I would. I was like, who else in here has any kind of acting talent besides me? I'm going to crush this. And they did. They hired me. And that was my first foray into voiceover, actually. And I'd had many people tell me over the years, "You've got such a great voice. You should do voiceover." And I was like, I don't even know how to get into that, where to begin to do voiceover. But here was my start. Here was my in. And they had me doing everything. I was doing all their commercials. I was doing all their promo material. I was doing all their training. Like it was like a slideshow training, and I was doing the audio behind the slideshows. And I'd always been really good at reading, and I can tell you about that story in a little bit. But I remember the first time I had to go and do a training video, and I had to read these slides, and it was like, a few paragraphs per slide. And I didn't know how the system worked. I didn't know how to like edit what I recorded. So I felt like I had to just nail the whole slide in one take and then move on to the next slide, So I'm like, okay, I better just focus and knock this out. And I had to restart a couple of times, but I got through doing the whole training video. I got through doing everything, and I walked out of the booth, and there was a guy who basically puts it all together and sends it out in the trainings. And he was like, "You're done already?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's like half the time that our last person took to do it." And I thought I took a long time,
Yeah. You didn't
And he
know
was
any
like,
better, so you're just going with that. That's funny.
yeah. And he was like, "You took like half the time that our last person did to do that." And then he listened, and he was like, "Oh, this is great." And so they kept calling me, and it just started making me think, you know what, this is something that not everybody can do. It's a talent that not everybody has.
Well,
And
isn't it interesting? Like, because like you have that desire, and you're wanting to go to the stage, and you're wanting to act, and you're wanting to do this, and you're finding things in your current circumstances to give you those opportunities. Like, you found it in your current job. And it's just amazing how when we truly want something, these opportunities are showing us. And I love how you said, when you were angry, you asked yourself, why am I so angry? That's so powerful to be able to realize that the emotions that you're having are telling you something. They're an indicator. It's not necessarily so much of what's going on outside, but it's telling you what got rubbed inside of you that you're not doing. So
oh yeah, for sure. I wasn't being who I was supposed to be. I was.
Exactly.
That's why I felt like a phony being a stockbroker. I felt like So it wasn't me. But now when I say I'm a professional actor, it's like, yeah, that's what I do. I'm a professional actor, and it rings true like it's never rang true before on anything else I've ever done.
And you can see it in your posts. You can just see it on you. It's there and it's part of you. So I'm glad you went through all that, stepped up and owned it, because that's absolutely who you are.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, without a doubt.
So cool. What do you love? So the stage, the voice acting, what is it that you love the most? Is there one baby of yours that you just absolutely love?
No, I love them all for their individualness and what they offer. I love the stage. I have to say, I probably love the stage the most, just because there's something about the instant gratification you get from having an audience in front of you, right? You're in the moment, and you're making an effect on the audience in the moment, and it's so powerful, it's so impactful that my first real major impact, I remember when I was playing Porthos in the Three Musketeers. And the Hale Center Theater is great because they do student shows where they'll bus in students all over to come watch a show. And that's actually what got me hooked too. When I was in high school, we went to the Hale Center Theater when it was on Main Street, and we watched Catch Me If You Can, or See How They Run. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, that was my thinking. But, in Three Musketeers, there's a lot of fighting. There's like punching and sword fighting and all this other stuff. And we'd performed the show a few times, for regular audiences. But here we finally had like an audience full of high school kids. And there's this moment where Porthos and Athos are fighting these soldiers, and Athos hits the guy, and he comes at me, and I cock back, and I punch him in the face. And we have all these sound effects and things that you do with stage fighting that, really sell it. And I pound the guy in the face, and the whole side of the audience that saw like the profile of it, all I heard was, ooh. And I was like, oh, that is so good. That is so good. And it just, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm definitely supposed to be here. This is what I love.
We connected. So you felt it, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Powerful. In the moment. And, playing Marley as well. I come out and I've got all these chains, and I've got this ghostly voice that I do, and I have this crazy makeup, and like little kids that are sitting on the front row are all like kind of cringing back, and oh no, and I'm like, yes, that's what I live for, that kind of thing. But I love voiceover as well, because I can be anyone. I can be anyone and anything. I've done audiobooks. I've done 10 audiobooks now so far, and I've played monsters and dragons and fairies and Sherlock Holmes and Watson. I've played the Cheshire Cat. I've played men and women both, and I've done so many different accents. I played an Indian scientist. Come over to my lab. You better be ready to go. You can't do that in real life. You can't do that on film. You can't do that on stage because of all that stuff. But in voiceover, you can. You can do whatever. And so I love the freedom of that. And I've played. I do a little bit with my son. He has these plushies, and we always play with these plushies. And two of the characters that are my favorite ones are, he has this little tiger named Stripes and a penguin named Waddles. And they're buddies in my scenario. So I have that on my Instagram TV, my IGTV, Waddles and Stripes, where they're like, hey, Stripes, what's going on? Oh, hey, Waddles, what are you doing? And it just I love playing with voices. And that's kind of what I wanted to go back to. I alluded to earlier. Someone asked me, what made you realize that you wanted to do voiceover? And it was a lot of people telling me that I had a really good voice. But when I looked back at what the beginnings of that were, what was the origination for that for me, my parents bought me, before Walkman, before CDs, before, MP3s. I had a record player turntable and
Oh,
it
wow.
had those listen and read books, right? You'd listen to the
Oh, yeah.
reader, and then
Yeah. I
at the
totally
chime,
forgot
turn
about
the page,
those.
and so I would turn the page, and it was the same person reading all the different
Oh,
characters.
wow. I
And
never
I
noticed
thought,
that.
I
That's
could do
funny.
that. And then I used to talk in all these different voices all the time with my family and friends, and so that was kind of like, oh yeah, that was the origin of me wanting to do voiceover. It was something like as simple as that early on.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Well, do you have a favorite character that you do with voiceover? Or
Um,
those two that you said?
yeah, Waddles and Stripes, and Marley was one of my favorite stage voices that I did. It's I don't know. I have. Did you Ratatouille, the chef in Ratatouille, right?
Oh, yes.
What he says, I am just a figment of your imagination. You know that guy.
That's
um,
awesome.
there's something that I can do inside my throat. I don't know. And when I auditioned for Marley, I saw this guy go up and he was like breathing really heavy and doing all this stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to try this voice that I, think I could do. And so that's one of my favorites because it's kind of an echoey voice where I say, Ebenezer Scrooge, ask me who I was.
Oh, the
And
echo.
then
That's awesome.
it's this weird kind of thing that I can do, and I don't know. Everyone's like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know how I do it. I just do."
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, you're so talented with so many different voices, and I really love like the TikTok where it's like way different. Like you chose such extremes for that one TikTok. You probably done a lot of them, but it was one of the more recent ones that I
Yeah,
saw. Now, did you go to training for that? Because I know, like you said, in LA, you wish you had done more training. Was that something that you changed, or you just kind of naturally found what it was you needed to do?
it was natural. I just figured it out.
Yeah.
I did take a voiceover class. It was nice. It was called Edge Studios. I think they still do stuff. And they had a class where it was like, take this class to find out if voiceover is for you.
Hmm.
And they had you reading all sorts of copy and practicing different readings, and at the end they give you this big evaluation and tell you if you should do voiceover, and if you should, what area of voiceover you should go into.
Hmm.
And they were like, you are so multifaceted, you could do pretty much anything. What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, I'd like to do it all. And that's a really hard thing, and a lot of people get that wrong when they go into acting, and I kind of break a lot of norms with what I'm choosing to do because I feel like I have those skills, and I don't think a lot of people do, but they tell you when you get into voiceover, pick a niche. Pick a niche of what you want to do. Do you want to just do commercials? Do you want to do training videos? Do you want to do IVR? What is it that you want to do? Animation, audiobooks, whatever it is. Find that niche and then just hammer that one home.
Hmm.
And I thought, yeah, I get it. I understand that. That makes sense to me. But I feel like I've just got more skill than one little niche can fill, and that's really hard for a lot of people to come to grips with. And then I do stage, and I did stage for a long time, and then I started taking acting classes for film, and that was a big struggle, like to really learn how to tone it down, how
Yes.
to bring it in to be so more in the eyes. Everything is in the eyes. It's not in your actions and expressions, and it's very subtle. It's so
Hmm.
subtle, and the camera picks up everything. So, here's this stage actor who's acting for the people sitting on the back row with a camera that's like 2 inches from my face, and I'm overly expressive, and my acting teachers were like, we got to slap that out of you. You can't. You can't be acting that big for the camera. It doesn't. You're overselling it.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that, but I mean, it's I think toning down, it takes an adjustment. It's an adjustment period, but once you get it, it can click in there. So it's better
Oh
than
yeah.
getting on camera and not being enough, like being so subtle and not being enough. Like, what do you do with that? You know what I mean? So it's definitely a switch, but yeah, I mean, you've got it all. So I'm super happy for you there. And going back to I completely lost my train of thought there. Well, with that, what do you recommend? Oh, it was going back to the niching it down. You said
Hmm.
finding the niche that you want to go into. Now, I can see how that's helpful for people that are unsure or just starting out and you just kind of, need a direction. But I think what's so important, and that's what it was you felt it, like you really trusted yourself that you could do other things. You didn't want to lock down in there. So I
Yeah.
think that's a huge difference and something so important, that there are norms and different things that are taught out there and certain things that you can follow. But I really feel that if you're taking training or you're listening to people and you're like, okay, but one thing just really stands out within you and something's calling you and telling you, no, you got to try this other thing or do this other thing. I think it's important to listen to that, because
Yeah.
that's where our specialties lie. And that's where like we live, and if we are true to that and we go there and we let it shine, then that's where you stand out. If you had followed and gone down just one niche and just stayed there, you could have been confining yourself. So I think
Yeah.
that's super beautiful how you illustrated, following what it is that was speaking to you. So I'm glad that you're so tuned in. It's awesome. So
Well, it
cool.
took a long time to really find that. You have to gain confidence in yourself. You have to gain trust in your abilities and yourself, and you have to constantly work at it. It's not something. I mean, I probably do something with acting almost every day. I probably I'm working on my craft, on my skill every day, and I don't take my talents for granted. I'm always messing around with different voices. I'm always trying I've got auditions that come up and I'm practicing lines for my auditions constantly, or when I have conversations with people and I'm recalling stories, I use different voices when I tell the story instead of just speaking from one voice a lot. Um,
My kids hate when I
it's
read to them, and I
yeah.
just adding like emotion to it, and they're like, "Really, mom?" But
Yeah.
they're
Well,
so
and I read the whole Harry Potter series to my sons, both of them at different times. So I've gone through it a few times, and I read it out loud in all the
wow.
different voices. And I had a
That's a
friend
lot.
who was like, "I'm so jealous of your kids," and they were like, "Next time you read a book, read this book." They gave me the Never Ending Story, and they're like, "You have to read this one, and I want you to record it, even if you just mess up. I just would love for you to have
I'll
this."
buy that version.
Yeah, for me to listen to with my kids, because I know you can do all these different voices. And I was like, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to try.
That's
I might
awesome.
actually do a Twitch stream of me doing the Never Ending Story and see where that goes. But
That's pretty cool. I like that.
yeah,
Well, do you have any advice for anyone that just as they're like, because it's the craze or whatever, I'm gonna get into voiceover. Is there anything that you think that they need to consider if it's something that hasn't really been calling them this whole time, or if they're unsure? What do you think someone new getting into it should consider at least?
well, just in any form of acting whatsoever, you have to be prepared for lots of rejection. Um, you have to have the thick enough skin to handle it, because there is tons of rejection, and you get a bazillion no's for every yes you have, and you have to learn how to persevere and be excited for that. You have to take classes. I can't recommend that enough. There's so many people who think, "Oh, I'm fine. I got the talents," and I'm like, "No, no, you. It's a muscle. It's a muscle. You have to work it out. You have to exercise it. You have to keep it sharp." And even then, like I go to acting classes now, and I'm picky about what acting classes I go to, because there's acting classes for beginners, and there's all these different skill levels. And you walk in there and it's frustrating, because I don't want to perform with somebody who just started. I don't, as where I've been in my life, I don't like performing with somebody who's just started, because it's more for their benefit than mine. I'm not getting anything out of it. They're learning everything from me, which is fine. It's
Hmm.
fine to do that every once in a while, but I want to learn something. I want to gain something. And when I go to an acting class, I'm checking out the people in the room and like, oh, I want to do a scene with them. Oh, I want to do a scene with them, because I know that that'll bring out more of me. It'll bring out a better version
It's
of
gonna
me.
stretch you,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I get into class and I'm I hate to say this, but I'm always looking like, oh, they're a contender and they're a pretender, and I try to stay away from the pretenders, because they're just dabbling. They're just dabbling, and I'm not dabbling. I'm serious about this. This is what I want to be doing. And so I try to find classes where everybody in the class is serious. They're all about this. It's not a hobby. It's not a habit. It's not a thing they're trying out. Like, you got to be serious about this.
Awesome. I love that. Beautiful. All right, Anthony, where can people go to find more about you, hire you, book you, enjoy your art?
Yeah, so you can check my website out. It's www.antheratops, like Triceratops, but with anth in front of it. I've got all my demo reels on there, and my voiceover gigs that I have done, and I've got links to my audiobooks. If you want to buy my audiobooks, you can check it out on antheratops.com. And then also I do a podcast right now. That's kind of my side gig. I'd like to say it's called The Orion Way of Life, and that's on Spotify and Apple Pods and Google Pods. And it's all about masculinity in the world today, where I talk about things that I want to change the conversation about masculinity in the world and how men are perceived and how they're viewed. And it's quite interesting because I have a lot of female listeners trying to find out more about men by listening to my podcast as well. So if you listen to pods, I recommend checking that one out too, The Orion Way of Life, like Orion, the constellation. And so those are probably the two places I would go to look.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, thanks for having me on. I think it's fantastic. And, like I said, if you're interested in this, I would say go online and look for classes. Go look in your local community for stuff to find out if you're interested in this, or if you're wanting to get into voiceover, take that class like at Edge Studios. Take the Intro to Voiceover class and see if it's for you, because it might not be. In a class like that, it's like $50, and if it's something that's for you, they'll tell you, and if it's not, they'll tell you that too. They'll tell you don't bother, and then you'll save yourself a ton of time and heartache. So
perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for being here, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks.
Bye,
you
guys.
too.